What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Patrick, aka Addicted to Combat, back for another week of Best Bets and Props, where I go over all of my betting action for this weekend's UFC card, which is UFC Vegas 65, Derek Lewis taking on Sergey Spivak at heavyweight. 12 fights remain on this fight night card at the Apex in Las Vegas, kicking off at 12 p.m. Central Time. I think the early prelim starts, so an early fight card this week. I do have 5 moneyline bets, 3 favorites, 2 underdogs, 1 prop, 2 long shot prop sprinkles, which I went over on my full card breakdown. And by the way, refer to that full card breakdown for any details on this one. I'm going to breeze through these bets. And also check out the live stream I did with my friend Johnny K. Picks the other night, and we went over Bellator as well as the full UFC card. More of a casual back and forth, picking each other's brains and talking bets and props, so check that out as well. And yeah, I do have a full progressive parlay for this card as well, since we're doing a live fight companion stream on Saturday at that time, 12 p.m. Central Time. As soon as the fights kick off, we will be streaming myself, Lou Betya, Johnny K. Picks, and Cody from Blood Money MMA Bets. We did the same crew, same live stream fight companion last time for UFC Vegas 61, and it was a lot of fun. So we're going to run it back on my channel this time on Saturday. So like I did last time, I just went kind of degenerate, had a full progressive parlay where I parlay all of the fights together in pairs and try to get a big payout. So I'll go over all of that at the very end, but yeah, check out the description. BetUS is a partner of this channel, BetUS Sportsbook, so check them out. Use my promo code Addicted to Combat 125 for either 100 as the minimum, 2,500 is the maximum. You can match that 125% for a sportsbook bonus using that promo code, so check that out. But going over the first money line of the night is a favorite, and it is the second fight of the night. Brady Hiestand, I got talked onto this bet, 2 units at minus 162 on the money line for Brady Hiestand to defeat Fernie Garcia. And I got to give all the credit to Uncle Wheezy, my boy, a very popular guy in the community, very smart gambler, and he put a max bet on Brady Hiestand, a guy that I initially wasn't, that thrilled with. I thought that he would be a good matchup against Fernie Garcia, but, max bet that kind of caught my attention. So I went back a little bit deeper, looked at the skill set as it stands, and yeah, I mean, going back to Fernie Garcia's LFA career, I mean, this guy, pretty much every time he struggles in the cage, it's from getting taken down at will. So Brady Hiestand, I went back and watched all of his Ultimate Fighter tape as well. And yeah, I mean, some of that is very impressive stuff. He can chain wrestle. And I do like Brady Hiestand's ability to not only wrestle, but he goes to it immediately within the first 10 seconds of a fight. Pretty much every fight he's in, he's looking for ways to set up the takedown, usually with some fast strikes. So very aggressive guy. Seems to have decent cardio the more I look into his his tape and things like that. So even on The Ultimate Fighter, he fought a guy who was like 31 years old, 10 years older than Brady. And, he had like a 16-5 record of some savages. So Brady beat that guy on the house, sent him packing. And I think this is a solid matchup where Fernie Garcia is mostly a boxer, does not like to wrestle at all defensively. So 2 units, minus 162 in the money line for the first money line of the night on Brady Hiestand. Moving on to Miles Johns, who I really am impressed with, more than maybe some people are, but I put 2.5 units on him to win, what is it now, minus 145. So to win, just right around a unit and a half back in return. I like the fact that he's got wrestling in his back pocket. Miles Johns, not the biggest physique for this weight class, but the guy at bantamweight has got really good striking with his jab that he steps in with, throws people off, sets everything up with his hands off the jab. And the threat of the takedown alone basically opens up the striking a little bit more for Miles Johns. The only thing that goes against him is he has had a bit of a cardio problem in a lot of his losses, but at this price, at minus 145 on the money line, I don't think it's moved much more than that. I'll take him there to weather the storm against Vince Morales, who I'm not too impressed with. I mean, Morales is a decent mover, but I think Miles Johns is a guy who can be the aggressor, strike effectively moving forward, or strike effectively moving backwards and circling off of the cage, staying in open space and countering appropriately. So give me that. And I also do have a couple of these long shot prop sprinkles 0.1 unit on Johns to win in round 3, and 0.1 units for Johns to get a submission in round 3. That's plus 3,500. Just for him to win in round 3 is plus 1,400. He's a guy who's had a couple round 3 stoppages most recently, right? So he's coming off of a loss to John Castaneda in round 3, but before that, he does have a very nice knockout over Anderson Dos Santos in round 3 and a round 3 KO of Kevin Natividad. So I think this is going to play out a lot like the Anderson Dos Santos fight as far as how Miles Johns matches up to Vince Morales, and I expect him to get the win here. Like I said, 2.5 units on his money line at minus 145. Moving on to the last favorite I have on the money line. This is Charles Johnson making his second walk to the UFC cage. Minus 165 on the money line. I got him 1.65 units to win 1. And this is a guy who had 5-round cardio that he showed. He even got a stoppage in round 5 over the newcomer to the UFC, who's Carlos Mota. This is one of those guys who were back in the LFA earlier this year, and Charles Johnson won the flyweight championship in the LFA, which earned him, a bout in the UFC. He made his debut back on the London card over the summer against Muhammad Makayev, and that is a tough test for anybody. He got taken down like 12 times in that fight. I'm pretty sure that Charles Johnson can show a better skill than that. This, to me, is basically his debut. We know how good Muhammad Makayev is. He's a pretty unbelievable talent. Zhalgas Zhumagulov, who Charles Johnson is fighting now, is actually 1-4 in the UFC, has a lot of close decision fights. Not the biggest power puncher, not the best wrestler either. I don't think he's going to do his best Muhammad Makayev impersonation here and have much success. Charles Johnson, I'm sure, has been working relentlessly on... in the past, he had to refine his striking. He was in the LFA earlier, made a bunch of improvements, came back to the LFA, a more refined kickboxer, showed that, and got the championship in that organization. So I think now is the time that preparing for Muhammad Makayev, and now coming off of that devastating, embarrassing loss, he's got to be working the wrestling part of his game. I expect him to make improvements again. Not to mention he's a much, much bigger framed guy at flyweight tier, at 5'9". He's going to have a huge size and reach advantage over Zhalgas Zhumagulov. So give me Charles Johnson, like I said, minus 165, paying the price to win 1 unit in return. Moving on to a couple of underdogs now. The fun part of these money lines, I do have 2 units on Andre Fiallo at plus 105. He's still a slight underdog on a lot of books. This is a pick'em price tag over Muslim Salikov. And I got to say, these are 2 strikers that are going to meet in the middle of the cage and swing. Andre Fiallo is 28 years old with a lot of pretty good experience and 13 knockouts out of his 16 wins. Super new to the UFC, but he's already had a 2-2 record just this year. This will be his 5th fight in the calendar year. He's going to be taller, have a reach advantage over Muslim Salikov, who is 38 years old, a full decade older than Andre Fiallo. And Muslim Salikov, let's be real, the guy's like 88 in fight years for the Russian striker, Wushu Sanda kickboxing champion of like over 200 fights in kickboxing before his mixed martial arts career. So he's got a lot of fight miles, and he's been fighting. His past 4 fights have all been about a year between them. So the complete opposite of Andre Fiallo, Muslim Salikov is taking a lot of time in between his bouts, probably battling injuries at this age, and he just got cracked on the chin and knocked out for the first time in MMA by Li Jingliang over the summer. So I think his durability is starting to fail him in his old age here, and I think Andre Fiallo will add another knockout loss to Salikov's record. So 2 units at plus 105 to win a little over 2 units there. The last money line I have is probably my favorite one because it's betting on a guy with really bad fight IQ and just an absolute savage, and Ian Kuntalaba, who pretty much uses more testosterone than brain cells in the octagon, but he's fighting Kennedy and Zetriku. And Kuntalaba is surprisingly a decent-sized underdog here. I got him at plus 145. I jumped at that opportunity, put 2 units on it. In case the money line kept moving in Kutalaba's favor, it did not. It moved in Kennedy's favor. So you can get a better price on Kutalaba at a higher underdog price. That's one where I whiffed the line movement for sure. But 2 units on him at an underdog price. I like Kutalaba to start really fast in all of his fights. Kennedy starts really slow in most of his fights, so I think that's a bad matchup here. Kutalaba's the stronger grappler, the better striker, more powerful striker. And probably the more durable one as well. Kennedy and Zetriku is not a guy who eats damage or reacts to it very well. We've seen him weather the early storm of Carlos Ulberg and come back and win. That could be a strategy that could work here against Kutalaba, but I don't want to bet on a guy in Kennedy who's losing until he wins. Kennedy is coming off of a very impressive victory over Carl Robertson recently, where Carl Robertson's kind of a bum. Kennedy was able to out-wrestle him, out-muscle him in the clinch and on the ground and get a TKO stoppage in round 3. I don't see him having that type of success with a wrestling game plan over the Moldovan savage of a grappler in Ian Cutelaba. I think Cutelaba gets an early knockout in this bout, and I think it happens within 1 round. But if not, he could out-wrestle Kennedy over 1 round, 2 rounds. If he gasses out in round 3, he's still up 2 rounds. So give me Cutelaba here. I do think he gets this job done inside the distance, though. At plus 145, I got him at. You could do better than that. I put 2 units on Cutelaba. My last prop is on somebody who's not a great fighter, but the money line kind of makes this work for me. I put a prop on inside the distance for Chase Sherman at plus 290 inside the distance. I put just a half a unit on that over Waldo Cortez Acosta. This is at heavyweight, and Cortez Acosta actually just fought 3 weeks ago to the date from this Saturday. So he fought Jared Vandera, who Chase Sherman just last knocked out. Cortez Acosta made his debut off the Contender Series, had a 3 knockout streak, meets Jared Vandera and can't knock the guy out. Goes kind of a lackluster 3 rounds with Jared Vandera and gets his leg kicked about 40 times over 3 rounds. So, Cortez Acosta just couldn't find the range, couldn't find the chin of Jared Vandera. That's okay, but the fact that he's coming in, and scheduling another fight in 2 weeks, 3 weeks to the date, that I'm not okay with. I think this really does put some value on Chase Sherman here, who's money line basically is him winning inside the distance, right? Chase Sherman has a horrible UFC record, 16 wins and 10 losses overall. 15 of his 16 wins for Chase Sherman are by knockout. Only 5 of his 26 fights have seen the judges' scorecards. And out of those rare 5 fights that see the scorecards, Chase Sherman's only won 1 of those decision wins. So, if he's going to win, he's going to knock out, Waldo Cortez Acosta here. He's got the power to do it. He's got the fast hand speed and good technical boxing early on to do that. And I think he's going to meet Cortez Acosta in the middle of the octagon, unlike Jared Vandera, and they're going to slug it out. Chase Sherman has a very good chance of losing this fight. He's the underdog. But again, plus 290 inside the distance, that becomes Chase Sherman's money line when you look at how he wins his fights. 15 of 16 times he wins a fight, it's by knockout. I don't expect him to have much cardio to go into the later rounds of a fight. If it goes super late, I think Cortez Acosta wins this fight, but I'm only out half of a unit, and at least I tried at almost 3-1 odds here for Chase Sherman, which I consider to be his money line. So those are all of the money lines and just a few props I had. Moving on to my favorite part of this whole thing, but also the most irresponsible part, the progressive parlay, where I've got 3.45 units staked on this total progressive parlay. And what this is basically a group of 6 different parlays pairing off fighters in order of confidence. So we're going to have a 2-leg, a 4-leg, a 6, 8, 10, and 12-leg parlay. So 6 total parlays. Wagering the least on the most risky 12-leg parlay, wagering the most on the least risky 2-leg parlay. And we'll go in order of, confidence here in a way. So I'll write this all out on the screen so it makes a little bit more sense mathematically speaking. You'll see what the odds are and what I've wagered on who. But this is something I did for the last live fight companion stream we did with the gang. We did it at UFC Vegas 61. So hopefully this one's a little bit more successful than that one was. I'm leading this off with Jack Della Maddalena, the biggest favorite on the card and my most confident fighter on the card. And I'm actually going to parlay him in a 2-leg parlay with Derek Lewis in the main event, who is the first underdog on this thing. That's a 2-unit stake on that 2-leg parlay, plus 219 odds for that. And what this does is Lewis is not my most confident fighter, or my second most confident fighter, but if I get the rest of these parlays, then they all hinge on Derek Lewis at the very end. Before the fight starts, I can hedge off on Sergey Spivak, Lewis's opponent, and guarantee profit on each side. I'll talk more on that at the end when I list this all out, but Jack Della Maddalena, Derek Lewis, 2 units for a plus 219 return. The second parlay here, adding on to make a 4-leg parlay, got Brady Heestand and Charles Johnson we're adding on, so that's 0.75 units wagered on that 4-leg parlay for plus 720 odds. Then we add on Miles Johns and Andre Fiallo, so a second underdog here in Fiallo, 0.25 units, so just a quarter unit play on this 6-leg parlay for plus 2,400 odds, a little bit more. Adding on Ricky Tercios and Ian Cutelaba, a second underdog at 0.2 units only. That's 100-1 odds or more. Adding on number 9 and 10, we've got Marina Moroz and Natalia Silva at 0.15 units. That's going to be like plus, 26,000 or something like that. So 265 to 1 odds on that 10-leg parlay. And then finally, 11 and 12, we've got Vanessa Demopoulos and Chase Sherman, 2 more underdogs, 0.1 units. And that is something crazy. That's like 1,461 to 1 odds. So just a lottery ticket at the end for 0.1 units. Now, what I was saying about hedging out is now you can see how all the units are allocated, what the odds are I got them at, and what the payout would be if these hit. So where I can actually hedge this out on the main event, if we made it to that third line where Miles Johns and Fiallo wrap it up, so Jack Maddalena, Brady Heastand, Charles Johnson, Miles Johnson, Andre Fiallo all do their job, they all win. And we get that lucky, and then it's just hinging on Derek Lewis to get the final W. What I could do is I could actually lay money, since we're about to win 16 units in that circumstance there off that 6-leg parlay. I could just put some money. I could put enough money on Sergey Spivak at his minus 200 or whatever odds to cover the cost of this 3.5 unit PRP, and we could be profitable no matter who wins that main event. That will be the goal. That's where I would hedge out. If you're feeling dicey on Derek Lewis for some reason, you could let it roll, but that will be the goal, is to get to just that third line where I can make a profit either way. Otherwise, it's kind of hard to do that strategy on just the two parlays hitting for that 4-leg. That even, it just wouldn't make sense. So I think in this circumstance where the odds are, I would need to get all the way down to Johns and Fiallo in order to hedge out. And I certainly will do that if I get the chance. But a lot of untrustworthy fighters on here. This is kind of ridiculous. I'm just doing it for fun for the live stream, but tail at your own risk, and you could use your own picks on here too. You could use better picks than mine if you have more confidence in other fighters, or you just rearrange this in a certain way. But always make sure that you put the most money on the 2-leg parlay and the least the further you get down. Otherwise, it all comes crashing down. If Jack Della Maddalena, twists his knee or something on Saturday, then we're screwed and we just lost 3.45 units. So that's the danger here. And I understand that this is actually even more flawed for me because I've got actual money line plays in a lot of the fighters that I have parlayed up here. So, if they lose, I'm losing both on the PRP and on the money line. So a really high risk, high reward weekend for me here. And you can watch me lose all the bankroll on live stream. So tune in to Addicted to Combat and check out me, Lou Betya, Blood Money MMA Bets, and Johnny K Picks on Saturday. When the fights kick off at the early prelims, we will be streaming, drinking, and just talking shit with the chat. So hit the like, hit the subscribe, and I will talk to you guys very soon. Cheers.